And Mike Kelly.
And then we should introduce everyone. This is the meeting of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, the Crisis Stabilization Facility Committee. And with us today, we have Ann Deacon, that's me, Human Services Manager for the county. Jack Hovenier, Chair of the Task Force. Todd Donovan, Council Member and member of the Task Force. Mike Hilly with Emergency Medical Services. Doug Chadwick, Under Sheriff. Stephen Gockley, Co-Chair. Jackie Mitchell, Program Specialist for Behavioral Health in the Health Department. Did I get everyone?
Yeah, and Mike Kelly here. I just want to let you know that I have a communications intern, Rosalie Cohen, who's on the meeting as well, just to monitor and watch. Rosalie is going to be helping with little communications activities with our behavioral health group and the GRACE program. So they're listening in just to learn.
Welcome, Rosalie. I see your name is Mike Hilly, and I thought, you know, Mike does not look like that. So,
Rosalie, you should have the ability to rename yourself if you'd like to do that.
okay, so let me give you an update on the center. We opened the first week of January, and as you can imagine, with a 24,500 square foot building, not all is perfect yet. There are still things being worked on, but we do have the substance withdrawal management, or fondly known as detox, side of the house up and running. 16 beds for them, 16 beds for mental health stabilization. The 16-bed mental health stabilization is also fondly called triage. And that triage program is not yet operational in the new facility. They're having some delays in the updated license. And so they're still providing services in their the previous location, the one that we had for many years. We do have a program advisory committee for the new center that is working on smoothing out and hopefully answering all the questions needed so that we can divert people from both arrest and also the emergency department. So we're working right now with EMS especially, and Mike can talk more about this, but that is an effort where EMS can drop people directly off at detox. And I think I'll leave it at that. And in a few minutes, Mike, I might ask you to talk about how that's working. And then, of course, the involuntary status that would allow law enforcement to hold somebody for up to 12 hours in the facility is still in process. And according to Compass Health, who is going to be running the triage program, 3 out of the 5 managed care organizations have agreed to pay for that level of care. So they're waiting for the last 2, but we're much further along than we thought we were going to be there. And that's very exciting. Once we do have that and get it certified, then obviously we'll be finalizing the protocols and procedures for law enforcement to drop people off directly. And with that program advisory committee, we've asked both the city attorney, Peter Raffato, as well as the prosecuting attorney's office to assign people to that program advisory committee to make sure that law enforcement and the city attorneys, prosecuting attorneys are all on the same page in terms of who is eligible to be diverted to that facility. So I'll talk more about that in a minute, but I wanted to just show you the video that Bellingham Herald took, and then also let you know that the county exec's office did the same and that it is in process of being edited. And I was told hopefully by the end of this week, it'll be done. Not only will we send that out to you, but it will be on our website and everything else. So let's start there. Jill?
I will go ahead and share this video. If you all can hear the audio from it, just give me a quick thumbs up so I know it's working properly.
So we are just so excited. I personally am very excited. We have been working on this as a community. It's one of our top priorities for behavioral health services to our community. And to have it finally done, up and running, is incredibly satisfying. There are 32 people we can serve at any given time. We've never had that ability before. We're trying to make this a comfortable, welcoming place for all of them, and a place where they can actually get stable from their behavioral health distress or crisis, get connected to services, work with really wonderful people. So for us, it's a win, and we are just thrilled to be involved.
So the timing couldn't be better, and I'm so thankful for the county's forward thinking and putting this together to take good care of our people here.
Thank you, Jill. It was kind of hard to hear Alicia Rule, but I think the link was sent to all of you. And of course, an article in the Herald went with that was a little bit more detailed. And you'll notice I'm going to also share a couple pictures of the outside, which we also have the architect is bringing their professional photographer in tomorrow, and he will be taking pictures of the from a drone up above, as well as some of the treatment shots that we'll also have available to the public. Am I able to share my screen? Looks like it.
Yes.
So I'm going to, if I can get over to it, share a couple pictures from up above. Can everyone see that? So this is still in process, but this is facing east. And so you'll see the work center on the right. And then the bottom of this huge building is the back side of the building where law enforcement and EMS will be able to drop people off. We still have to put up signage, so law enforcement and EMS will know which door to bring them to, because there's two separate triage triage by that I mean admission areas. And then of course the public entrance is on the other side, and I'll show you that. And this is the front side of the building. It isn't completely done, so looks much nicer than this because not all the siding is on here. But it has a beautiful entryway where we have the formal plaque, of course, that dedicates it, and kind of a lovely entryway with a couple columns. And one more picture I'll show you. Obviously, this is from the north looking south. And so the bottom half of the building, you'll see it's in an L. So it's basically a building split in half. So the top half and the bottom half are both exactly the same in terms of how the treatment units are laid out. There's common space in the middle, and then towards the back is the commercial kitchen.
And what are the two separate outbuildings that we're looking to the right side of the picture?
The trailer kind of things.
Yeah. I mean,
They're not
in
part of this. I think part of the construction activity.
No, I mean there's
I think you're seeing those pitched roofs. I think they're just pitched and part of the same. They look separate, but I think it's a pitched roof that's actually part of the main building.
okay. It looked different in the other picture, but
It did. I thought the same thing. I thought it was two standalones, but I think it's just the angle.
Oh, great. Yes. So what we asked the architect is, please make this look like a lodge as opposed to an institution. And when we had visited other facilities, they had flat walls on the outside. You know, it was just not welcoming in my mind. And so I asked for more of a lodge-like appearance. So each of these little roofs almost look like a dormer, signal a couple treatment rooms. So each window that you see is a treatment room, and on each side. And we used earth tone colors, so greens and browns. And you'll saw in the video that we also used kind of beiges and greens inside. And when we get the new drone pictures, you'll see the final product, which is lovely. This is also a LEED certified building, silver level. And so we have plugins that I don't think are shown here, but for electric cars, bike rack storage inside, all the things required to meet LEED certification. So it's a pretty impressive building, to say the least. The kitchen is able to serve, I think they said 96 meals at a time. So they're also going to be serving, so Pioneer Human Services, who is providing the detox service, will also be managing the kitchen, and they'll be providing food service not only for this entire building, but they're also working with other organizations in town. So when our new recovery house is up and running later this spring, they'll be providing the food there. And then they're also working with other partners in the community. So that's a pretty exciting time. Questions about this? Go ahead.
You said that you would be putting the video and maybe some of the photos up on our website. I assume by that you meant the health department. May I request that we at least be able to link from the task force homepage? Anything you put up?
Yes, that was planned. So it would be part of the incarceration task force. It'll be part of the health department, and my guess is the main county page will want to highlight it for a while as well.
Yeah, I would think so. A couple things. Yeah, having some photos, because you know the task force originally, this was our main thing. So I think some follow up there is great. Also, Stephen, I won't be, as you know, I think at the steering committee meeting immediately after this. I've got a different meeting I have to be at, but I would recommend that we have Ann, and this may already be planned, show the video, show the photos, and do kind of I hate to call it show and tell, but not everybody on the full task force has seen this. So I think that needs to be part of the agenda at our next meeting, and just make sure we have the technical expertise to show that. So if you could suggest that at the steering committee, I'd appreciate it, Stephen or Ann, whichever. I doubt there's any objection to that. And finally, Ann, I want to go back to the delay on the triage side with licensing. Is that something we can help with? Is this an issue with the person we've contracted with? Is it because obviously we're at January 21st, and so I'm curious why. What is it a facilities license or?
So I will tell you that I have been disappointed in Compass Health's pace of forward progress here. I think it's mostly them. We have reached out, offered many times. We've met with the MCOs. We have done what we could, without obviously getting in the middle of negotiations that we don't get to be a part of. And I just think they have been
That's
slow.
enough for me. I don't need extreme details. So, but it sounds like it's an issue between Compass Health and whoever gives the license, and we are providing whatever support we can to facilitate it. Okay, all right. And what's the remedy? In other words, at some point, are they anticipating in a week or two are they giving us a timeline, or like at what point do we say, what more help do you need? Because obviously we want to get both sides open.
I'm assuming what I heard was by next week.
Okay. Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then obviously the next step is once they're in there and, providing service as usual, just more beds, then we still need to push toward the involuntary status.
Sure. And I don't necessarily think this committee is the place to drill down to all the exact things. I just wanted kind of a sense of what the issue is. And I think I have that, and let us know if there's something we can do to support it getting licensed and opened.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can you, if you don't get this resolved within a week, can you at least email, I don't know, this committee, the steering committee, someplace where we know that things continue to be bogged down and we can think about further steps?
I will notify Jill so she can put it out in whatever proper form is necessary. But yes, I absolutely will do that.
Jack, I'm sorry, Todd. Jack, I would just want to clarify your request. Are you asking that Ann show the video and what we've seen today at the steering committee, or simply at the steering committee get it on the task force agenda?
The latter.
Okay.
Yeah, just I think if we had 5-ish minutes at the task force of video, sound, but just give everybody a good sense of how great it looks, what's going on. I saw this when it came out in the Herald, like many of you, but I know not everyone has seen it, and it'll help us all be on the same playing field. Plus, we've been working toward it for 5 years. In the case of Ann and I, more than a decade. I mean, those blueprint drawings in the health department room were, it seems like a millennia. It's a different generation. And so to finally see this thing on the ground is I think worth paying attention to and celebrating a little bit.
Absolutely. I just wanted to follow through the way you were asking.
Todd?
I don't know if this is getting ahead of the agenda, but so the detox side is open. How much use are we getting right now?
So when I talked to them a couple days ago, they had 9 people already. And I think there are some program issues, admission issues that we're working on right now. Without boring you with all the details, there's just a lot, not only in getting the building perfectly or as close to possible working, but even the program issues. Problems in direct drop-offs by EMS because they were concerned about their inability to screen for COVID, and just so many different details. I'll spare you, but
No, as to be expected. It's just fantastic to see it actually open. So.
And after we're over the initial COVID program, all the crap that I think everyone expects would not give us realistic results, I think one bit of data that would be nice for the committee is a sense of the approximate ratios between self-referral, but the law enforcement EMS drop-offs, because I think part of the task force hope is that there's law enforcement EMS drop-offs that reduce visits to the hospital and the jail, as opposed to self-referrals. And most of what I've heard from people in the community have fallen into the self-referral. So I have no sense of what the other is. And right now, I think those numbers are relatively meaningless. We have a very small window. There's all these extraneous factors, but my hope is the story will be, we can demonstrate EMS law enforcement drop-offs that are diverting in time.
and so I see Jackie is on the phone, and Jackie, I hope you're listening at this moment, but Jackie is going to be working with the providers on setting up some regular reporting and not only performance measures, but outcome measures. Oh, Jackie's at the ocean. So yes, our plan is to have a robust ongoing conversation with our providers about what they're doing and who they're serving so that we can make adjustments as necessary. And both providers are crystal clear that this is a county/community program, that it's not like they just operate separately, independently with the funders and don't include us. This is an integral part of the community's efforts to improve diversion.
Well, and I think if we
Jackie, did I
find it's
leave-
only 10% drop-offs, for example, from law enforcement EMS, we would want to engage in some outreach, some PR to better communicate what services are available. On the other hand, if it's 60, 70%, I mean, I don't know where the numbers are. And I think right now numbers are relatively meaningless because it's all really new and people are just getting started. But over time, that seems like a really good statistic to have a sense of.
Jackie, I saw you for a minute.
Yes, I agree, Jack. I think that looking into the percentage of drop-offs and certainly making sure we made a reduction would be a really good outcome. Absolutely.
And Jackie, I
So-
left you out. You and I were even before Ann, for those of you that don't know, we'd sit in this little room back with Health Department at Snacks talking about this dream. And it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I started working with the health department, 23 so years ago, and that is actually when it started, believe it or not.
All right.
It's been a long time. So almost 2 generations, I think. So
Sorry, didn't mean to
So-
derail it. It's just kind of cool to see Jackie's face and thinking back to all that.
Yeah, so we basically added 10,000 square feet for every year, Jackie, and you have been working on this. Yeah. Doug,
I just want to kind of add on what Jack was alluding to is obviously the involuntary status is going to be key for us to be able to utilize that facility as it was intended. So we've obviously pushed out the LEAD program is out there now. We certainly see the crisis stabilization facility as an integral part to that program, as well as taking a little pressure off the ED.
yep, it'll be critical. And the old triage location at the end of the work center building, we've offered that to Compass Health at an incredibly cheap rate, but only if they are willing to put staff there that can help respond and support the involuntary effort. So that was
gonna be
our
my next
carrot.
question is, what was the plans for the old triage center? So that's great that something's in the works already.
Yeah, thinking about, we have a mobile crisis outreach team in our community that I know the sheriff's office works with a lot. It involves both the voluntary crisis response as well as involuntary, like the designated crisis responders who can civilly commit people for treatment. And the thought was that location could house all those people. It would be close to the center, obviously right across the parking lot. So if somebody needed to be evaluated for an involuntary treatment under the civil code, that they could respond quickly. And we were going to give it to them for $100 a month plus cost of utilities, which I think is a great motivation. I think they were interested, but we'll see how, but we put conditions on that. It was really the only carrot we had.
I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but as the publicity comes out, it's possible some of us on the task force will be asked about the rollout. And so can you give me the 10 or 15 second elevator description of what the COVID protocols are for drop off and admission?
No. and I wish I could. So that is one of our issues. So Compass Health is going to do just the standard screening that other medical clinics do, which is take your temperature, ask if you've been exposed, ask if you have symptoms. That's their protocol. Right now, we're working with the detox side because they wanted everyone to undergo an antigen test to see if they were positive, but there's not an easy way to do that. There's complicated issues. And so they were sending, and are, as of today anyway, everyone to the emergency department first to get tested. The emergency department isn't happy about that. It isn't, you know, a sure thing anyway. And so we're working very closely with them right now to fix that, so they'll take direct admissions. And that might be a good segue, Mike, if you want to just talk about the work you've done to facilitate the EMS drop-offs.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. Just briefly, we have designed a set of medical clearance protocols that EMS and to some degree, if needed, law enforcement could use. Right now, I focused really most of that work on the SUD side of the facility because the mental health issue is a little bit more ambiguous with patient clearance and getting them in on that side. So once the details are worked out with Compass on that, we'll kind of move to that. But my priority has been on the SUD. And we are pretty comfortable with a high acuity level of patients going over there. This has been a discussion between the pioneer physician, nurse practitioner who will be supervising the facility. And then, of course, they're going to have RN level care on there. So once we get over this testing issue, this COVID issue, or figure out how to get people in, we can institute this protocol pretty quickly. We will have to slow step it just a little bit. You know, there is still some general uncomfortableness between the ED physicians and just not being familiar with the facility and their ability to take care of these higher acuity patients. But I feel like we'll get there. It'll just be, you know, 1, 2, 4, 5 patients. Once we see those success, then I think you'll see more diversion from that. The diversion also for at least EMS requires a conversation with that physician over at the ED to allow them to do this alternate facility. So like I said, there'll be a little bit of developing some comfortableness in that. But we've got a good high level or very comprehensive protocol. Like I say, everybody likes that. And once we get through these couple little small issues, we'll be diverting pretty quickly.
So I'm sorry, Stephen, it wasn't a very good answer yet, but it's a work in progress, but Compass Health will take people directly and screen
Hey, Mike,
there.
would you mind shooting me a copy of those protocols you came up with?
I'd be
Just
glad to,
Compare
yeah.
them to some of the other ones that we've been working with.
Great.
Yeah, and that's all you can say. I understand that. If you and or Mike can keep us posted as those start to develop, even between meetings, that would be helpful.
We'll make a point of that.
And I'll just add the medical program director for the county, Dr. Wayne, is super eager to get this going. Definitely being watched. Dr. Cooper down in Everett, he's the Snohomish County medical director, is working a similar program. And interestingly, Pioneer also staffs that facility down in Everett. So there's a big interest regionally to make this work. And I just found out yesterday at the state EMS steering and trauma committee that sounds like there's some legislation going through that might provide granting for EMS to progress these diversion programs even further. So I'll keep watching that. There are also going to be some rule changes on EMS, and I think this would be very helpful if we get down the road. EMTs and paramedics are going to be legislated to be allowed to work in these diversion centers classified as emergency services supervising organizations. EMT and paramedic practice is strictly controlled by the state, and especially where they can work. So this will be similar to EMTs working at the refinery or working at the ski area. We could place EMTs in the diversion center that would give you a little bit of an extra level of protection, especially if there was an emergency in the facility. So there's some changes that are going on that could be beneficial to us down the road for the diversion center and EMS.
The other thing too is I think both providers understand that they not only do they have a lot more room, as you could see, but each person has the ability to be in their own room. And so the ability to manage transmission issues of COVID or any other communicable disease, or they just have so much more resource now than they did before. So I think they feel like they can handle it unless somebody's actively symptomatic and out and about, but they are feeling more confident that they can manage this situation. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to bring up today and alert you to is that, as you saw in that video, the walls are pretty darn plain. And we did put in some green accent walls and some fancy stuff in that. I should tell you that on the walls, you'll see that there was kind of a light tan panel all along the bottom of the walls up to about 4 feet, is it, Perry, I think? And it was put in every treatment area. And that was really to protect the walls. It is this really, really hard material that makes it pretty much impossible for somebody to damage the walls. And that was something that was noted in other facilities when we visited, and our facilities department really wanted to protect our walls. So even if somebody was on a gurney or in a wheelchair, that there were always marks against the walls or dents where people ran into them, or somebody who was under particular distress wanted to kick or hit. And we would advise against that. They'll probably break a bone, but the walls will not be damaged. So other than that hard material, there's nothing on the walls. And in a facility like this, we don't want to hang pictures. And so we talked about recruiting local artists, paying them to paint some murals throughout this facility. And Bellingham City Council member Holly Huffman has volunteered to lead this effort. And so she has reached out to Maury Ingram at the Community Foundation, who might be able to help fund. Peace Health said they could make a small contribution. Holly is also on the board of Makeshift, and the director there is very excited to help put together not only a recruitment of artists, but also to work with the providers on what kind of murals they might want. Obviously, nothing too busy or, how shall I say, triggering. And so that is going to be our next step, is try to fancy it up, homey it up a little. We did hear from somebody who has worked on the inpatient unit at the hospital that perhaps a mural in the bedrooms, even though they look so bare, may not be a good idea, simply because they've had a lot of problems with people drawing on the walls and having to repaint all the time. So we'll see about that. Or maybe, I don't know how you paint a mural and then protect it from paint. I don't know, maybe you can clear coat it or something. But anyway, those are other thoughts. So if you do have ideas of artists that might be interested in participating, I'd love to have their names, and we will bring them in and see what we can do. But that was kind of that's a fun project and something that will make the place look really nice, I think. So I don't have any other things right now for this committee other than really the updates that you asked for, Stephen, which is, as you can imagine, there's 1,000 things going on with this building and these programs right now. And so as we solidify some kind of final determination on each of them, we'll make sure that you hear about that. But are there other questions or other things we need to be looking at?
You know, and I know that we don't want to get into a lot of detail in regard to this particular meeting, but as you had mentioned, the committee, advisory committee that has been developed relative to the Crisis Stabilization Center, I wanted to, and I think that we maybe shared a little bit about this, but I wanted to reiterate that in connection to the lease agreement, we also drafted memos of understanding with specific expectations and provider responsibilities, many of them that have actually been referenced today in regards to supporting law enforcement drop-off, supporting EMS drop-off, working with the community, being a part of the committee, and et cetera. as a contingent item on the lease agreement. So, maybe in time, what have you, but I certainly am taking responsibility as we get settled in with the Crisis Stabilization Center, of meeting with the managers, going over this material to make sure that they understand what their respective companies had signed in terms of the agreement. And then it's also connected to, as Jackie mentioned, the data gathering and information, and that's actually referenced, in the memo of understanding as well. So I just wanted to reference that, within this.
And I think that's a really good point. I mean, for us to get as much leverage as we could, we got pushback from at least one of the tenants that the lease looked more like program expectations, and they were not happy about that since we're not paying for programming. And we said, fine, we won't put it in the lease, but we'll put it in an MOU that's attached to the lease. And and so that's what we did. I think they were still a little uncomfortable with it, but did understand that this was just too high a priority in our community to just turn all the programming over to them without any input from the county. So we put in the leverage where we could, not only in that MOU, but also in renting the other space and just making sure that we have the connection to the services as much as possible, given that we aren't paying for them. Oh, I should say that in terms of the operational funding, right now we appear to be okay. We will see what the final discussion and negotiations are between Compass Health and the MCOs about whatever it takes to get to the staffing level for an involuntary. If we need to put in a few more dollars of local funds to get them up to an involuntary status, both our state representatives, Sharon Shoemake and Alicia Rule, were more than happy to go to the legislature on our behalf. I wish I knew now what that was, because I don't want to wait too far into the legislative session or we miss our opportunity. But I did talk with Representative Rule about maybe identifying this center and these programs as a pilot project for this state. There really is only one other involuntary triage facility in the state. It's down in Benton, Franklin County, and it's connected to a large campus where a lot of different services are offered. And so they don't staff it for a true involuntary setting. They just push a button if they need somebody from one of their outpatient programs to come over and help. So we don't have quite that resource. So that's what we're trying to do right now, is just make sure that if we need additional dollars from the state, that we can identify this as a pilot project. And I did wrote up a brief legislative request. I just didn't have a dollar amount to put in it. So that wasn't very helpful.
And I apologize, I'm going to sign off. I have we're expecting a big snow event this weekend, so we're doing a little bit of planning for that. So I'm going to step off with the
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. You have a great weekend.
Yeah. Any other questions for today?
One last question, Ann. I'm starting to get in the mental habit of running everything through my index committee prism as well. So can you just briefly say when you think utilization data and other data might be substantive enough to have meaning, and how frequently you'll get reports from the providers, and whether the planning team feels confident that we've given index all of the data measurements that we want to track?
Great question. Jackie, do you have any sense of that right now?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, how soon might you get data that is meaningful?
Oh, that's a good question. Right now, one of the providers is pretty much providing some data that I think would be useful. The other one is not, and have been reluctant until Perry and I meet with them about the MOU to sort of change directions on that. So you're talking about baseline data. We might be able to start acquiring that in the next couple of months for the second provider.
Maybe we're looking at the second quarter before we can
Yeah.
begin getting serious.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
frequently will you be getting data reports from the providers?
Probably monthly. I mean, we like to get it monthly, generally speaking, because that way we have something to compare to. We can look at trends. We can respond a little more quickly. If we get it on a quarterly basis, we can't really respond very quickly or kind of change directions on data.
It's actually written into the component of the MOU as well, Stephen, that it would be monthly at a minimum of admissions, admission denials, total utilized beds, et cetera. So we actually address that within the lease agreement itself.
Any other questions? I know you hate to have time left over from a meeting schedule. Well, all right. So we have started the last leg of the race, I guess is what I would say here. Last leg of the relay. And it's very exciting for us. I will say the building is beautiful. And I'm excited to show you the pictures that the drone takes here soon. And it's lovely. Thank you very much, folks. Oh, we came in under budget.
Oh,
That's important to note. I see Todd here. I should tell you, Todd, we came in under budget.
How much under budget?
I don't know yet. I just know that we didn't spend all of the local funds that we thought we would have to.
All right.
So that's always important. Not on time.
double
But-
congratulations then.
Yeah. All right. Good to see you all.
Thanks, Sam, everybody.
Bye.